You got into your car this morning, turned a key, pressed a pedal, and moved forward without using a single muscle. Today, traveling 40 miles an hour feels completely ordinary, but 100,000 years ago, that same journey could have taken 2 full days of walking barefoot through dangerous, unknown territory. There were no roads, no paths, and no signs telling you what waited beyond the horizon. For almost all of human history, every journey happened at walking speed. Humans were never the fastest animals on Earth. A cheetah could outrun you, a horse could leave you behind, but speed was never our greatest advantage. Humans were built for endurance. We could walk day after day across mountains, forests, deserts, and plains. Step by step, generation by generation, our ancestors crossed continents and eventually reached almost every corner of the planet. We were not built to move fast. We were built to keep moving. And that simple ability would eventually carry humanity farther than any other species on Earth. Humans could walk for days, but eventually the world put up a wall, a river. You could cross a desert. You could climb a mountain. But a wide, rushing river could stop an entire journey. Then someone discovered something simple: wood floats. A fallen log became a bridge. A bundle of reeds became a raft. And slowly, humans learned to cross water on purpose. They built canoes, paddled across rivers, and eventually sailed toward islands they couldn't even see. But water wasn't the only problem. Humans could travel far, but they couldn't carry much. So they dragged heavy loads across the ground, built simple wooden frames, and invented the travois. Then came an even bigger breakthrough: dogs. A team of dogs could pull an entire camp across snow and ice, but humans still wanted more power. And about 5,500 years ago, they found it in the horse. For the first time, humanity could move far faster than walking speed. The world was about to become smaller. The horse changed everything. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans had moved at walking speed. Now, a rider could cross in days what once took weeks. Messages traveled faster, trade routes stretched farther, and the world suddenly felt smaller. But humans kept adapting animals to the environments they faced. Donkeys carried heavy goods across rough terrain. Camels crossed deserts. Reindeer pulled sleds through Arctic snow, while llamas carried cargo over steep mountain paths. Then came one of the strangest inventions in human history: the wheel. Humans had already crossed oceans and domesticated horses before the wheel appeared. The earliest wheels may have been used for pottery, spinning clay into shape. Then someone looked at that spinning disc and imagined it turned sideways. The first wooden wheels were heavy and awkward, often cracking on rough ground and getting stuck in mud. But then came the spoked wheel, lighter, stronger, and faster. Suddenly, horses could pull lightweight chariots at incredible speed. Add roads, and transportation became a true system. Trade expanded, supplies traveled farther, armies could move across huge distances, and civilizations grew. The horse, the wheel, and the road had transformed distance forever, and every new breakthrough was built on the one before it, making the human world smaller, faster, and more connected than ever before. But transportation kept evolving. The problem was no longer just distance, it was weight. A human could walk for days, but carrying a massive load was an entirely different challenge. So our ancestors began dragging heavy objects across the ground, using animal hides like primitive sleds. It was slow and exhausting, but it worked. Then came a smarter idea: the travois. 2 long poles formed a V-shaped frame with a platform between them. Suddenly, one person could move far more weight than their own body could carry. But humans soon discovered an even better solution. They didn't just build transportation, they partnered with it. Around 15,000 years ago, dogs became the first animals humans truly worked alongside. In cold regions, teams of dogs pulled sleds across snow and ice, carrying supplies and even entire camps. This was a major turning point. Humans had learned to move themselves, move heavy objects, and use another living creature to multiply their own strength. But dogs were only the beginning. Humans needed something bigger, stronger, and faster. And about 5,500 years ago, on the steppes of what is now Kazakhstan, they found it: the horse. The Botai people were riding horses, controlling them with bits, and even collecting mare's milk. These animals were no longer just something to hunt. They were becoming partners, and the effect was enormous. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans had traveled at walking speed. Suddenly, a person on horseback could move nearly 30 miles per hour. The human world became smaller, almost overnight. Distances that once took weeks could now be crossed in days. Messages traveled faster, trade routes stretched farther, and armies on horseback could arrive before their enemies even knew they were coming. The horse had transformed transportation, but humans were still missing one crucial invention: the wheel. But the horse was only the beginning. Once humans learned to ride, the world suddenly seemed smaller. Mountains, valleys, and distant destinations that once took weeks to reach could now be crossed in days. The horse didn't just carry people. It carried messages, supplies, and trade. It connected places that had once been separated by enormous distances, and humans quickly learned that different environments needed different partners. Donkeys carried heavy loads through difficult terrain. Camels crossed deserts where humans struggled to survive. Reindeer pulled sleds across Arctic snow. Llamas carried cargo through steep mountain paths. Wherever humans traveled, they found an animal suited to the environment and put it to work. But even with animals, there was still a problem. The world was becoming smaller, but moving heavy things was still difficult. Then, around 5,000 years ago, humans discovered something that would completely change transportation: the wheel. And strangely, the wheel may not have started as transportation at all. The first wheels were probably used for pottery. A spinning disc helped shape clay. But at some point, someone looked at that spinning circle and imagined something different. What if you turned it on its side? The first wheeled vehicles were far from perfect. Their solid wooden wheels were heavy, slow, and easily damaged. In rough terrain, carts could get stuck in mud, while a horse without a cart could sometimes move faster. Then came the breakthrough: the spoked wheel. It was lighter, stronger, and much faster. Now horses could pull chariots carrying people and supplies at incredible speed. But the wheel needed something else to reach its full potential: roads. Once wheels, horses, and roads began working together, transportation became a true system. Trade routes expanded. Supplies could travel farther. Armies could move across enormous distances. A simple circle of wood had helped shrink the human world again. First, humans conquered distance with their feet. Then they crossed water. They learned to carry more, partnered with animals, and discovered the speed of the horse. And finally, they gave the horse a wheel. That combination would help build civilizations.
The journey of transportation did not end with the wheel. It was only the beginning of the world we recognize today. For hundreds of thousands of years, every journey depended on human legs. Then came boats, animals, wheels, roads, and eventually machines that could carry people farther and faster than ever before. Today, you can turn a key, press a pedal, and move without using a single muscle to carry yourself forward. Your ancestors would have considered that almost impossible. A modern car transforms the ancient walking journey into effortless movement. A road replaces the uncertain wilderness. A machine replaces the physical effort. And suddenly, distance becomes something you barely notice. But the biggest transformation came when humans learned to leave the ground. Airplanes turned oceans and continents into short journeys. A distance that once required months of walking, sailing, or riding could suddenly be crossed in hours. The world became smaller. You can now travel across the planet in a single day. You can order something from another continent and have it delivered to your doorstep. You can summon a car to your exact location with a device that fits in your hand. Movement has become so easy that it has almost disappeared from our attention. But look back at the journey that made this possible. There were no roads, no signs, no maps showing exactly where to go. There was only wilderness, uncertainty, and a horizon. Ancient travelers crossed mountains, deserts, forests, and rivers without knowing what waited on the other side. Every journey demanded effort, patience, and sometimes enormous risk. Then humans began solving one problem after another. They learned to float across water. They learned to use animals as partners. They learned to build wheels. They built roads. And each invention made the world smaller. The horse transformed speed. The wheel transformed weight. Roads transformed distance into connection. Eventually, these inventions became systems. A road connected settlements. A horse carried people and supplies. A wheel made heavy loads easier to move. Together, they created networks that allowed trade, communication, armies, and entire civilizations to grow. But the story continued. The ancient road became the modern highway. The horse-drawn cart became the automobile. The sailing vessel became the airplane and the massive ships that cross oceans today. The simple walking trail became a global transportation network, and the journey from one place to another became almost effortless. Imagine standing beside your ancestors. They are walking across an unknown landscape, carrying everything they can manage. You are sitting inside a modern vehicle. They take steps. You press a pedal. They follow a trail that may disappear. You follow a paved road designed to take you exactly where you want to go. The difference is almost impossible to comprehend. For most of human history, travel was an event. Today, it is a routine. You call it a commute. You complain about traffic. You become annoyed when a car takes a few extra minutes to arrive. You fly thousands of miles and become frustrated when the Wi-Fi is slow. That is how completely humans solved the problem of distance. We solved it so thoroughly that we forgot it was ever a problem. But every highway, railway, airport, bridge, and transportation route exists because someone, long ago, started with a single step. One person walked toward the horizon. Then another followed. Someone discovered how to cross water. Someone learned how to work with an animal. Someone built a wheel. Someone created a road. And every generation added something new to the journey. The modern world is not separate from that ancient journey. It is the result of it. Every car carries the memory of the wheel. Every road carries the memory of the first trail. Every airplane carries the dream of crossing a distance that once seemed impossible. And every journey you take is connected to the first human who looked at an unknown horizon and decided to move forward. Your ancestors walked across continents they could not name. They crossed places they had never seen. They traveled without knowing exactly where the journey would end. They did not have roads. They did not have maps. They did not have engines. They had only their feet. And somehow those feet carried humanity across the entire planet. Today, the world feels small because of everything humans built along the way. A journey that once took days can now take minutes. A journey that once took months can now take hours. A journey across the planet can now happen in a single day. And yet, beneath every modern machine is the same ancient idea. If you want to reach somewhere else, you have to move. The first transportation technology was not a wheel. It was not a boat. It was not a horse. It was a human being taking a step. That step became a trail. The trail became a road. The road became a network.